Hello and welcome, everybody. So, we will be continuing our non-election coverage for the remainder of this week at least, because it doesn't look like we're getting anywhere anytime soon. But I will be continue covering stories that don't have to. They may be political in nature, but they don't always. They won't do with the actual election. So, Supreme Court begins hearing arguments in ObamaCare challenge. The Supreme Court has begun hearing the latest legal challenges to Obamacare, making the third time the landmark health care legislation has gone before the highest courts in the land. Oral arguments got underway Tuesday morning in the case dubbed California v. Texas, with the health care of millions of Americans potentially hanging in the balance. A coalition of 18 Republican states, led by Texas, contends that a 2017 tax package eliminating Obamacare's penalty for not having health insurance also renders the whole plan unconstitutional. The GOP argument the GOP argument is predicated on a previous Supreme Court ruling that the non-eliminated monetary penalty was what made Obamacare a constitutional sound law as opposed to an unconstitutional federal mandate requiring Americans to purchase health insurance. 20 Democrat-held states, led by California, argue that because Americans can no longer be penalized for not having health insurance, Obamacare is not a mandate and therefore is constitutional. So, I'll start off by saying I am prior military. I have no dog in this race. Part of the reason I wanted to cover it so much, because its ruling coming out in the end doesn't affect me one way or the other. I have a pre-existing condition. Me and my kid are covered. Now, I do not get the best medical care by any stretch of the imagination. I have to go through like 6 hoops to get anything done. It costs me an arm and a leg. An average, visit is $60, 60, $70. And that's just for, going and seeing a doctor when I have, my finger split open or something along those lines. However, in the one thing the Obamacare does do for other people that this already does for me is covering pre-existing conditions. I cannot say one way or the other. In my personal opinion, I don't think you should be able to mandate that a private company does one thing or the other. Now, if you want to make it so that a government-ran healthcare product, there's nothing saying that the government can't have a healthcare product or insurance, because we have we have TRICARE, we have others as well, and I can't remember their names all of a sudden because my brain just farted it out. So anyway, they can have these products. They can be implemented. And they can be implemented fairly among those with, substantial pre-existing conditions, such as if you were born with cerebral palsy. Most insurance companies don't want to come near you because you are going to cost them money. An insurance company is a company. A company intends to make money. And I understand this. Or diabetes, or, any other myriad of things that in the end cost a lot of money. In fact, TRICARE got smart enough that if you are a person with like a significant risk to having diabetes or something like type 2, mind you, and type 1 is also the same, but if you are going to get type 2 diabetes, they'll give you gastric bypass surgery because that costs them less money in the end. Between insulin and constant doctor visits and the potential for things to go wrong, all that kind of stuff. So, you can't expect a company that is intending to make money to cover all these things, right? It sucks. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can go about doing this. you can make it and say, hey, this is a tax benefit to insurance companies who take clients who have pre-existing conditions. Not a great idea. I don't personally support this one, but this is one that's out there. So you get a tax credit. The insurance company gets a tax credit or a payment or some sort of subsidy for taking in people who have a set number of pre-existing conditions, or you get what I'm saying. A set kind of pre-existing condition, like the ones I stated earlier. You can just go through the list: cancer, whatever. Not my point. So they get money for doing that. Well, we've seen in the past that subsidies for other private businesses by the government to, pay for things that they think everybody needs only inflates the cost overall in the end. And we see this most prolifically with universities. Universities don't care if you, they love that you can get a loan from the government, because the government's going to pay for the college regardless. So they just keep jacking up their prices. This is a terrible thing that needs to go away. I'm sorry, but a loan that you do not intend to pay back, because all you literally have to do is sign up for a class, drop it. You don't get any money. The college doesn't get any money, but you don't have to pay it back for another year.
Soldiers!
And you give some, lame excuse as to why you decided not to. Work got in the way. I wasn't going to be able to do it. Thought I couldn't do it. And then for the next year, and you just keep doing that every single year, you never have to pay back your federal loan. People do this all the time. And it's despicable. And not only that, if you want to pay off the loan, you can pay, basically, after a certain point. They'll just say, hey, okay, can you start paying us back, please? And you're like, yeah, sure, I can give you $10 a month. And they're okay. And then it doesn't affect your credit. And then all you're doing is paying $10 a month. It comes right out of your paycheck. You'll never see it. You'll never know it's gone. As long as you have a job, they don't care. So, it's stupid. And the universities have taken severe advantage of this. I've gotten off on a tangent here, haven't I? Anyway, back to the main point is, if you started subsidies towards healthcare, that's how it's going to end up rolling. Is they're like, okay, we're going to take these subsidies, but we're going to charge that person more in the end. Because those subsidies are going to come, and they're going to pay for the extra amount regardless. So although you aren't physically seeing a actual increase in your premium, your taxes are going to pay for other people's premiums that the insurance company is going to jack up. I have no doubt in my mind that those greedy people are going to do this, because it makes financial sense. To not do it otherwise, it would be stupid if you have that ability, right? So we don't want to really give them that ability. So I don't like that proposal, but that is one that is on the table. The other being that the government itself creates a health care, like TRICARE and others, that only accepts people with severe pre-existing conditions, right? It's not unified healthcare, but it is a healthcare covering those things, specifically anything tied to those diseases. You get where I'm going here with this. But you can have so it's not going to cover your generic doctor visit. It's not going to cover all these other things, but it'll cover your insulin and all the other high-cost things that insurance doesn't want to pay for. And that's what it boils down to, because as we saw when ObamaCare became law, my personal outward expense, and I am a part of TRICARE, went through the roof. My co-pays went from, at the time, I think I was paying like $28, $30, maybe. And this is for stitches. Yeah, I don't go to the doctor otherwise. I don't go to the doctor unless I actually need to go to the doctor. But I went to it for a simple, I had pneumonia, and I went in to get the stuff for pneumonia, and they're like, well, you have a very severe case because you don't ever go to the doctor because you're a jackass, because I am. and I'll walk around with pneumonia for a year and a half, and then when it finally causes me to collapse, I'll go, okay, I think I need to go to the hospital, you know. And they're like, oh, look, you have, a liter of fluid in your lungs, and this is why you can't breathe. How are you functioning? This is strange. We'll get you fixed up, right? Not the actual case of what happened. I didn't have a liter of fluid in my lungs. I'd be dead. But you get my point. I was being exaggerative. But I had pneumonia for a very long time, and it was a severe case of it at this point. But in the end, all I had to do was go in for a doctor's visit and get antibiotics. It was no different in treatment than anybody else gets for pneumonia. I just had it for longer, right? I'm just a healthy person by nature. So what would have been very severe for somebody else was more mild for me. But that went from, when I had pneumonia a few years before that, when I had a drowning incident and got pneumonia from it, due to my own stupidity as a younger person. Now, mind you, I was much younger. I was 22, so quite a while back. I had a very stupid incident where I fell asleep in a shower and aspirated water, all right? Because I was drunk. And when you're drunk, you do dumb things. And I got pneumonia while I was in Korea, and I didn't get it treated until I got back to the States. Yada, yada, yada. But I had to pay like $30 then. It was like $28, $30 between the visit and the pack, right? And then, come this time, when I did it, there was a significant increase, which I never really seen before. But it went from being $20 to $100. That's a significant increase. That's 400%. And I asked why my copay was so high, and when I called TRICARE, they're like, oh, this is the new standard since the law was enacted, and all these provisions came down, and blah blah blah, and they gave me this whole spiel, and it's a very short jump from the Affordable Care Act went into place. I have to pay more money now. I'm not, it doesn't take a grand genius, and it's not a conspiracy. It's just insurance companies went, well, crap. I have to make money, otherwise I'm not a business. I go out of business if I don't make money. Only way I can do this is upping everybody else's stuff, because now I am forced to take people who I wouldn't normally take due to these pre-existing conditions with zero backfall for me. So, they complied. Like, okay, yeah, sure, it's the law, we'll do it. But this is going to be the ramifications of this. And that's what happened, people. The ObamaCare was terrible. I'm sorry. I know there are many people out there who don't believe so, but Obamacare was not only illegal, first of all, in my personal opinion, because the government can't mandate you to pay something as a foregoing of somebody, and it's on this strange sliding scale, right? So basically, the Supreme Court said, well, everybody's going to get there's going to be this massive increase on everybody, except for those with pre-existing conditions and those who make less than $20,000 a year. So anybody who makes more than $20,000 a year pays astronomically more. So if you were between, I think it ended up being 20,000. I think it's actually 25,000. So if you were closer to $30,000 a year to like $140,000 a year, you all paid the same amount of money for your insurance, so to speak. Like in a roundabout way. There was some variation depending on how much coverage you wanted, right? But you had to reach the basic minimum coverage. So it became this law. And if you didn't do it, you got charged saying, well, because you chose not to take health care, you are the exact reason why, ERs don't get paid. And these hospitals are, dumping money out, and we pay the hospitals, right? Yeah, you heard me there. They do. They pay the back debt from the hospitals through the federal government when somebody doesn't pay. So when people say, they're coming over here and they're, getting free health care, they're not actually referring to like subsidized, like actual healthcare systems, like TRICARE or anything like that. Any government funded, the other two that I cannot remember all of a sudden, I still can't remember them. Medicare, and Medicaid. That's it. Right. I understand the difference. One is for people on disability, and one is for those who have who are old. Right. So they're not actually talking about those illegal immigrants doing that. What they're talking about is illegal immigrants going to the ER when they're hurt or because they need a procedure. They give information about who they are and what they, and then it being false information or otherwise, they then get their life-saving surgery or whatever, and then they go back to wherever they came from, or they just disappear and they never pay their bills. Well, the government ends up covering that bill eventually. So, and that was causing havoc. So I understand that's where that comes from, just so you all know. The healthcare system is insane. I will say that. Like, you have to be a lawyer to actually know all this stuff. Hands down, 100%. Because I'm sure there's some things I'm screwing up. I can be wrong. It's fine. But this should never have been put into place. Now, I will say this. The original, he wanted this socialized healthcare, which would never have worked in the United States. There's a reason why it would never have worked in the United States. Take the fact that we are the only, so Russia says they came out with a vaccine. China says they have a vaccine already. I think that was announced today. We had our vaccine a few days before Russia and China had their vaccine. One of two things happened there. Either A, these countries were actually legitimately working on it, and I'm sorry, I don't trust Russia to make me a vaccine. I don't. I really don't. I really don't trust China to make me a vaccine.
Move!
And now I know some people are going to say, well, guess what? We may figure out the formula, but China's the one who actually makes it. Yes, I am aware. All right, I'm not stupid.
Mountain archers!
But I don't trust them to come up with the vaccine. These places are not good places. In general, their level of personal care for their constituents is extremely low. Russia is doing better nowadays than it used to back, like USSR and all that stuff. But as a general rule, China does not take care of its citizens. They don't. I'm sorry, you don't. And I don't trust any, I might trust, England? Maybe. Kinda, sorta. France, maybe. Not really. I don't really want to. But if it was the only thing that was going to save my life, then boom, chakalaka, I'll take it. But they said, hey, yeah, this was entirely developed in China, we say, I'll take my chances with life. Because more than likely what I'm going to get injected with is going to kill me. In my mind. I'm not saying any of these things are 100% true. I'm just saying in my mind, I equate whatever is in that Chinese needle is going to poison me in a different way, and I'm going to die a horrible death of dysentery and whatever, right? But in America, we do all this. So I cannot imagine that being the case. And when you when they say, "Oh, well, socialized medicine is fine and all," but it does one thing above all others, is it removes the desire to innovate and change and come up with new things, because there's no monetary incentive for these companies to do this, right? So you get into this kind of quasi everything stays the same, there's no progression in medicine. And we need progression in medicine, and we do most of it here in the United States. And that's why Pfizer and all these other drug companies are so extremely they're worth so much money, because we create the drug, and then Pfizer creates the drug, sells the patents to certain places, and they distribute it amongst the world. Almost all of the newer creations are by, American drug companies. And it is a business. And you can't take away that part of the business. And the government knows that already. That's why the original Obamacare was not passed, which was basically, okay, it's gonna be socialized. We're gonna take what Canada does and we're gonna implement it here, which was basically what he, in a broad sense of what he tried to do at first with Obamacare. And the Republicans and many Democrats too, don't think that it's just one side of the aisle on this, said, no, if you do that, all my money that I get every time I need to get elected goes away. They won't fund me again, so I'm going to vote against this. It's in my financial interest. That's another thing entirely, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go into that, about elections and super PACs and all that stupidity. But when Trump did his little tax thing that everybody was so keen to have happen, it changed the law that required that if I didn't have this, you were going to charge me for it basically, you're going to take away from my federal refund every year, right? If I even got any. So you were just going to take it away from me. That's, okay, sure. You're imposing a law that is supposed to be a right. Any right that the government precedes you, that if it's a right that the government says you have, and this is why I wanted to go into that. I'm going to do that Constitution series. There's two different kinds of rights. There's active and inactive, or positive and negative. They've been said in many ways, right? Basically, one is something they have to give you, and one is something that you can do. Case in point, you have the right to vote. That is something they give to you. You can go get your right to vote. It is something that is free to you from the government. You get the paper, they pay for all that, right? I also have the right to defend myself. Myself and my property. These are rights that I have. One is a positive and one is a negative. What I mean by that is one that's given to me, and one is one that I have no matter what. If that makes sense. You can't kill me and me not defend myself. This is not something that is in many countries. I can tell you that right now. Take Italy. I cannot harm somebody who breaks into my home, or I can be sued for harming them. This is a situation that occurred in Italy. I had a dog. I was not home. I was on TDY, so a temporary duty. And I left, and I had somebody watching my dog, right? And while I was away, the neighbors across the street, which were gypsies, a circulating place of many people, is the easiest way to put it. They weren't they were terrible people. They broke into my house, tried to steal my TV and stuff. Well, I had a pit bull. This didn't go well for them. Now, I love my pit bull to death, and he wouldn't harm anybody who was around me for any reason outside of that. And he is gone now. Dog's passed. But you cannot. My dog, I actually got sued. Now, mind you, due to the circumstance in which I was being, first of all, an American citizen. Second, my dog was in a kennel. He broke his tooth. and cut himself severely trying to get out of the kennel. Which he eventually did. Like, he did get out of the kennel because he took one of the thief's legs, or his calf. And he took most of his calf muscle off of him. So, but in my defense, I said, well, they attacked my dog. They let my dog out. It was in a kennel. Here's the kennel, and they let him out, or he got out, and proceeded to attack my dog. That's why he's all cut up. Not entirely the truth, I am aware. But in this particular case, they tried to break into my house. My dog defended my home. I'm an American. They were going to get any money out of me in the end anyway. They were going to get it out of the federal government. Because they can't technically sue me. There's other laws in place that wasn't going to allow that to happen in the end. Unless I personally do something against them. It's confusing. I was told that I wouldn't have to pay in the end, but use these reasons. So that is what happened. But I got way off on a tangent there. But my point is so by saying that it's mandatory that I have this health care, but not giving me the health care, and they kind of snuck around that whole thing by saying, well, you have to get it from this website, which is us giving it to you. Which wasn't actually the case. All it was a massive server that had bids. You were being bid on by insurance companies that were required to take you. Does that make sense? That's why the premiums and everything were so high on there, is because they didn't actually want you. Regardless, like they don't get to do any medical surveys. They don't get to do all the stuff they normally do to equate you a correct number, so they just gave you the highest number possible. Does that make sense? It's like, well, I can get insurance from, these 12 companies. For some reason, they're all $500 deductibles with maximum 100% copay fee, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it because there are no other options. This is what people saw. Now, if you were below that $25,000 a year bracket, you saw all sorts of cool stuff. Like, $10 a month copay fees and all this stuff, because it was being funded by the government. Because so all those middle Americans, they were messed up. They were messed over real bad. The whole thing was a kibosh. And they're like, I can't afford $300 a month for insurance, along with, if I get the sniffles and want a flu shot, I have to pay $150. You get my point. And every single, medication that I need to take is now 3 times more expensive. This is all this thing did. Now, by abolishing it, I think it's time. The main crux of it has already been kiboshed anyway. Very few people use the actual ObamaCare or Affordable Care Act site anymore anyway. The only people who do are those with extenuating pre-existing conditions, right? Below the $25,000 a month mark. That's the people who are left on this site. Other than that, nobody uses it. And the reason why so many democratic cities and stuff are fighting for this to not be overturned is because, as it is right now, the states don't have to pay for that. If all of a sudden all the people in those wage brackets and pre-existing condition brackets were to be in that, Obamacare would be abolished, that would go back to being the state's problem with Medicare and Medicaid. And California is already bankrupt to an extensive degree. And that would just empty out whatever's left. They would just get kiboshed. There would be, California would have to declare bankruptcy again. And property values would plummet, and there'd be a cascading effect in California But California made its own bed. I'm sorry, but you keep electing people with zero actual care about what you're electing, because they know that you're just going to check mark D and be done with it. That is not how the system's supposed to work. Nancy Pelosi has destroyed San Francisco. She has. She is 80 years old. She, one, has no idea what her constituents are even about. And two, does not care about them to begin with. She could care less. Her greatest hope is that Biden dies, Kamala Harris gets assassinated, and she becomes president. That's what she is hoping. That's Nancy Pelosi's great dream and bucket list. Right? Not that I think anybody could even assassinate a president at this point due to all the security measures in place, right? Unless the actual Secret Service chooses to assassinate them. That's the only way that'll ever happen. You would have to have a Secret Service agent assassinate them. Other than that, it's never going to happen again. You know, sorry, it's just not. There's too much safety in place. And so her dream will never come true is what I'm getting to there. I am being facetious, but that's my thoughts on this. I do believe, now mind you, they do say like there won't even be a judgment until, I think it was like February or something like that. Where was that? Ruling not expected until the spring, by which Joe Biden or President Trump will be in office still. They want to put the other thing on there to wave their flag of we're not on the wrong side of this. And yeah, so that's that, folks. We will see you next time. I will put up another video later on today. I don't know if I'll get 2 more out, but I'll at least get 1 more out today. So have a wonderful day, and we will see you all next time.